She arrived late, which felt safer, like entering a room after the story had already begun and choosing a seat at the back where nobody expected applause. The gym smelled of floor polish and old banners. Names once shouted across hallways hung on folding tables, printed in fonts pretending to be cheerful. Her heels tapped once too loud, and then she slowed, learning the room again the way one relearns a face after years apart. This was where she had learned to run laps and hide bruises under sleeves. This was where time had once felt endless. She found him near the refreshment table, his shoulders unchanged, his smile loosened by wine. He wore the same expression he always did when he thought the past was something you could greet politely and then leave behind. She watched him laugh with a man whose name she did not remember, watched his hands move as if explaining something small and harmless. She loved those hands. She hated that she loved them. They had built a life together, one grocery list at a time. Her own name badge curled at the corner. She smoothed it with her thumb and felt the tremor she would later deny. Someone hugged her. Someone asked about children. She answered with careful brightness, the practiced tone of someone who had learned how to be present while standing slightly outside herself. She scanned the room without admitting she was scanning. She felt watched and invisible at once. Then the woman arrived, or perhaps she had always been there and only now became visible, the way a word suddenly makes sense when read aloud. The ex stood by the trophy case, hair darker than memory, mouth softer. She held herself with an ease that came from having left and survived. The wife felt the old math stir, the comparisons she thought she had unlearned. Who she had been at 17, who she had become. Who he had loved before learning the grammar of marriage. It happened quickly. A recognition. A smile that reached too far back in the body. The ex crossed the room, weaving through old friends like she had never left. He turned. His face changed in a way the wife knew intimately, the quick opening, the softening that preceded kindness or apology. He said her name. The wife did not hear it, but she saw it on his lips. She felt something tilt. They embraced. That would have been survivable. People hugged at reunions. It was allowed, almost expected, like forgiveness. But the hug lingered. His hand found the small of the ex's back, a memory muscle firing without permission. The wife watched the distance collapse, watched their faces turn. The kiss was brief, not hungry, not cruel. It was worse. It was familiar. A kiss that knew where to land. The room did not stop. Music continued, a song from a year they all pretended not to measure themselves against. Laughter rose and fell. The wife felt the sound recede as if she were underwater. She tasted metal. Her breath went thin. She counted the seconds without deciding to. 1, 2, 3. It ended. He pulled back, startled by himself, by the sudden presence of consequence. She did not move. She felt the floor through her shoes, the way she used to before races, grounding, waiting for a whistle. She saw his eyes search for her and find her. The apology assembled itself on his face, the reflex of a man who believed words could still be tools. He took a step toward her. The ex faded, already regretting, or perhaps not. The wife's heart made a sound she had no language for. She smiled. It surprised her. It surprised him. The smile felt like a hinge clicking into place, a decision without ceremony. She lifted her glass in a small toast, as if acknowledging a performance. She nodded once, precise. She turned away before he could reach her, before he could touch her arm and say her name like it was a rope. In the bathroom, she locked herself into a stall and pressed her forehead to the metal. The echo of the latch sounded final. She breathed until the shaking passed, or changed shape. She thought of their kitchen at dawn, the way light gathered on the counter. She thought of the nights he slept with his back turned, the apology of space. She thought of the words she had swallowed over years, believing patience was the same as love. When she returned, she did not confront him. She did not cry. She became very calm. She congratulated old classmates. She laughed at stories that had lost their endings. She danced once, alone, letting the music move through her like weather. She caught his gaze across the room and held it, unblinking, a mirror he could not look away from. She let him see the distance arrive. He remembered their first apartment, she thought, the narrow stairs and the radiator that knocked all night. She imagined him remembering too, editing the memory, sanding away the dull hours. The wife felt the urge to scream rise and pass, a wave that found no shore. She chose silence as an act, not a failure. In that choice, she felt power and grief braid together, tight and cutting. Love did not vanish. It rearranged itself, heavier, less forgiving. She wondered when he would notice the weight, and how long he would carry it before asking for help. The moment settled inside her chest, permanent, unspoken, and quietly irreversible forever there. At the end of the night, as chairs folded and banners came down, she stood by the exit and thanked the organizer. He waited, pale, ready to explain. She kissed his cheek, light, almost kind, and whispered nothing. Outside, the air was cold. She walked to the car and sat without turning the key. Inside her, something had gone still, like a lake after stone sinks. He drove them home without music. The road unspooled in a way that felt punitive, every red light a chance to rehearse sentences he would not say. He glanced at her reflection in the windshield and saw nothing he could use. She sat with her hands folded, posture exact, as if being still might make the moment behave. The night pressed in, cold and clean. He felt the old terror of having crossed a line without knowing where it had been drawn. At the house, she unlocked the door and went straight to the kitchen. He followed, a step behind, the way he used to when she carried groceries and he carried the shame of forgetting something small. She set her purse down carefully. She washed her hands. The sound of water was loud. He stood there with his mouth open, then closed it. He told himself not to rush. He told himself that explanations worked when delivered calmly. "I'm sorry," he said finally, and the words sounded thin even to him. "It didn't mean." She turned off the tap. She dried her hands. She faced him with a neutrality that hurt more than anger. "I know what it meant," she said, and stopped. The sentence ended early, like a bridge missing its last plank. She reached for a glass and filled it. She drank. She set it down. "I know what it didn't mean, too." He wanted to reach for her, to anchor the moment in skin. He didn't. He watched her like a witness watches a defendant, unsure which side he belonged to. He told himself this was salvageable. He told himself love was a habit and habits could be corrected. She went upstairs. He sat at the table and stared at the place where her purse had been, as if it might reappear. He thought of the kiss and how brief it had been, how automatic. He thought of how his body had remembered before his mind did. He thought of how little time it took to dismantle a decade. He rubbed his face until his palms burned. In the bedroom, she removed her dress and hung it with care. She put on an old t-shirt. She lay on the bed without getting under the covers. The ceiling fan clicked, a tiny mechanical impatience. She stared at a water stain shaped like a country she had never visited. She felt tired in a way that sleep could not address. He came up later, cautious. He changed in the bathroom, giving her the courtesy of distance. When he returned, he sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping, a familiar topography altered. He said her name. She did not answer. He waited. He said it again, softer, like a plea. She closed her eyes. "I made a mistake," he said. "I didn't plan it. I don't want her. I want us." The words arranged themselves into something he hoped sounded true. He believed them. He needed to believe them. He watched her chest rise and fall, counted the breaths, as if proof of life were also proof of forgiveness. She opened her eyes. "Do you know what I watched?" she asked. Her voice was steady, almost kind. "I watched your face when you saw her. I watched your body lean. I watched how easy it was." She paused. That ease didn't start tonight. He flinched, a reflex he hated. "You're reading into it," he said, then wished he hadn't. He reached for her hand. She pulled it back, not sharply, just enough. The space remained. "I'm not," she said. "I've been reading into it for years. I finally finished the book." Silence thickened. He felt something in him scramble, a defensive architecture rising. "I stayed," he said. "I chose you. Doesn't that count?" She sat up. She faced him fully now, eyes clear. "Staying isn't choosing," she said. "It's just not leaving." She took a breath. "I chose you every day. even when you were elsewhere. He wanted to argue, to inventory the ways he had been present, the errands, the repairs, the shared jokes. He wanted to hold up the evidence of his decency. He saw how small it looked in the room. "What do you want?" he asked. The question escaped him, raw. She looked past him, at the window, at the dark yard. "I want you to feel it," she said. "Not guilt. Not panic. I want you to feel the absence you built while I was standing right here." He did not understand. He nodded anyway. He slept poorly, waking with rehearsed apologies that dissolved by morning. She rose early and made coffee. She left a note on the counter with a list of practicalities, the vet appointment, the bill due Friday, the plumber's number. No signature. He read it twice, searching for tone. Days passed. She was polite. She was efficient. She did not ask questions that would invite reassurance. She did not offer anger he could respond to. He began to feel watched by the quiet itself. He brought flowers. She thanked him and put them in water without comment. He offered therapy. She said maybe, later. One evening, he came home to find the spare room stripped bare. The desk gone. The books boxed. The absence felt staged, deliberate. He stood in the doorway and felt something inside him tip. He realized then that ruin did not arrive with shouting or slammed doors. It arrived like this, clean and orderly, a subtraction performed with care. Downstairs, she folded laundry, humming. He listened, and understood too late that the hum was a goodbye he could hear but not answer. The next morning he woke to the sound of the shower running in the hall bath, not theirs. It felt like a correction made overnight. He lay still, cataloguing the house by ear, the way he did when he was a child afraid to get out of bed. Pipes knocked. A floorboard complained. The house was awake without him. He waited for a signal that did not come. At breakfast she read the news on her phone, coffee cooling untouched. He poured himself cereal and forgot the milk. He noticed everything too late. He tried to speak and stopped. He had learned, in the last week, that questions were traps of his own making. "I'm staying at my sister's for a bit," she said, eyes still on the screen. "I'll come back for more things later." He nodded. He watched a drip of coffee mark the counter and darken. He wiped it with his sleeve. "How long is a bit?" he asked, hating the need in his voice. She looked up then. "Long enough to hear myself think," she said. The sentence felt rehearsed, which hurt more than improvisation. She stood and carried her mug to the sink. She rinsed it. She set it upside down to dry, a habit that had always made him feel known. He followed her to the door, carrying the small bag she'd packed. He offered to drive. She declined. Outside, the air was pale, a morning without ambition. She took the bag from his hands. For a moment they stood close enough for memory to try again. She did not step back. She did not step forward. She simply existed, unyielding. "Call if you need anything," he said, immediately ashamed. She smiled, a brief lift that did not reach her eyes. "I will," she said, and walked to her car. He watched her leave until the street returned to itself, a normal place where nothing had happened. The days rearranged themselves around her absence. He learned the choreography of living alone inside a life built for two. He ate standing up. He slept diagonally, occupying too much space as compensation. He folded laundry badly and did it again. He texted her updates that were not updates, proofs of continued existence. She replied with thanks and logistics. No questions. At work, he stared at his screen and misread emails. He imagined her sister's guest room, the borrowed quiet. He imagined her breathing there, the way she used to breathe beside him, deep and certain. He wondered if certainty could be restored, like a file retrieved from trash. He told himself stories where time softened edges. He believed them until night. He began to notice what she had done before leaving. The pantry labeled, handwriting calm. The calendar cleared of shared events. The framed photo from their wedding turned face down on the dresser, not removed, just reversed. He picked it up and turned it back, then felt foolish and returned it to its silence. He understood then that she was not erasing him. She was making room. Weeks passed. He asked to meet. She suggested coffee in a place halfway between their lives. When she arrived, she wore a sweater he did not recognize. She looked rested. He felt old. They spoke about neutral things, careful as diplomats. He told her he missed her. She did not say it back. I want to understand, he said. Tell me what to do. She considered him over the rim of her cup. I'm not your project, she said gently. And this isn't a problem to solve. I'm trying, he said. The word sounded heroic to him and small as soon as it left his mouth. I know, she said. You always try when it's already burning. He flinched. He felt the heat then, the delayed recognition. He wanted to reach across the table and take her hand and promise to be different in the ways that mattered. He realized she was listening not for promises but for evidence, and there was none he could present. That night, alone, he opened a drawer and found the letters she had written him over the years, notes folded into receipts and books. He read them in order. He saw the arc he had missed. The requests softened into statements. The statements thinned into jokes. The jokes disappeared. He sat on the floor and wept quietly, ashamed of the sound. She returned once, weeks later, to collect the last boxes. He helped without speaking. At the door, she paused. I loved you, she said, not accusing, not kind. I still do, somewhere. But I won't live where love has to wait its turn. He nodded. He wanted to ask where that left him. He understood the answer would not help. She left. The house exhaled. He stood in the doorway long after her car was gone, feeling the ruin take shape not as collapse, but as an empty space he would have to learn to cross alone. Years later, the gymnasium returned to him in fragments, not as a place but as a temperature. The chill of polished floors. The way light flattened faces. He learned that memory did not age with dignity. It repeated itself until something else replaced it, and nothing had. He lived alone now in a smaller house with fewer echoes, a place chosen for efficiency rather than hope. He told people he liked it. He did not correct them when they believed him. He kept busy. He learned how to cook one serving well. He learned the names of neighbors without learning their histories. He volunteered on weekends, a gesture he believed in until it began to feel transactional, like penance measured in hours. At night, he read until his eyes burned, not to learn but to be occupied. Silence was a weight he trained himself to lift. Sometimes he saw her. Not often. At the grocery store, once, when she reached for tomatoes and laughed at something said by a man whose face he did not catalogue. At a park, another time, pushing a stroller that was not his to push. Each sighting rearranged him quietly, like furniture moved while you sleep. He did not approach. He did not wave. He respected the perimeter she had drawn with her life. He dated without enthusiasm. He was honest in the ways that mattered and dishonest in the ways that didn't, a skill he had honed too late. Women found him kind, attentive, distant. He agreed with their assessments. He left before attachment could ask him questions he could not answer. He learned the shape of leaving and found it easier than staying. On the anniversary of the reunion, a date his body remembered before his calendar did, he woke early and drove without destination. The city thinned into roads bordered by fields. He parked near a river and watched the water move as if movement itself were a solution. He sat on a rock and thought of nothing until something arrived. He remembered the night she kissed his cheek goodbye. The almost kindness of it. The precision. He understood now that what she had done next had not been dramatic. She had not raised her voice or broken things or demanded spectacle. She had simply stopped carrying what he refused to hold. The ruin was not public. It was structural. He had imagined consequences as punishments. He had been wrong. Consequences were quieter. They were the way people stopped asking about your plans. They were the way rooms adjusted to your presence without you noticing. They were the way love did not return when called, because it had not been lost. It had been set down. He returned home and opened the box he had kept sealed, the one with letters and photographs and small proofs of a shared grammar. He removed one photo and held it until his hand warmed it. He did not turn it face down. He placed it back gently and closed the lid. He put the box on a shelf he did not use for anything else. He learned how to leave things intact. That winter, he ran into the ex at a cafe. She recognized him and smiled with an apology already assembled. He felt nothing sharp. They spoke briefly. She asked after his wife and he corrected her with a sentence that felt complete. She nodded, regret passing through her face like weather. He understood then that the kiss had not belonged to her either. It had been his, owned and mishandled. On a Sunday afternoon, he received an email from his wife. It was short. She thanked him for forwarding mail. She mentioned a book she thought he might like. No signature. He read it twice. He did not reply immediately. He sat and felt the old urge to fix rise and fall. He replied with thanks. He added nothing else. He learned restraint as a form of respect. In the years that followed, he became someone children liked and dogs trusted. He learned how to listen without preparing answers. He learned that regret could be a teacher without becoming a home. He did not remarry. He did not vow never to love again. He allowed himself to remain unfinished. One evening, he attended another reunion, a smaller one, a gathering of people who had aged into their faces. He stood near the door and watched introductions. He felt no dread. He felt no hope. He left early and walked alone under streetlights that hummed like insects. At home, he washed his hands and stood at the sink longer than necessary. He understood, finally, that what she had done next had not ruined him. It had ended the version of him that believed love would wait forever. The rest was work. He turned off the light and sat in the dark, breathing, letting the quiet remain unbroken.